Oftentimes, it's not enough to support only one language in your HMI application. When OEMs build machinery, they tend to make them as universal as possible, accommodating the language requirements of various global markets within a single HMI design. Sometimes, even within a single country, the interface must support two or more regional languages simultaneously. I'm sure you can think of more reasons why an HMI must be multilingual, but let's see how to make it happen. Everything related to languages in Panel Builder is located here in the project item called Multilanguage. By default, there is only one language present, which we've been using up to this point to build our HMI application. It is English, so let's just give it a proper name. By clicking Add button, you can create another language entry. Now, I would love to use common languages like Spanish, German, or Chinese, but unfortunately, I don't speak them good enough or at all. And even though there are tools which could help you with translation, I don't want to distort others people's languages. It's enough that I mess with the English. So I'll stick to my mother tongue, Ukrainian. I'll also set the language code to UKUA. You can narrow down writing system to your language. For Ukrainian, that would be Cyrillic. But if you give this a second thought, it's probably not a good idea. Even though the language is different, engineering units, equipment codes, and so on would remain in English. So just leave any writing system. You can also set default font for the language, but unless existing font doesn't support needed writing system, which is the case with Chinese language, for example, I would say just leave it the same for all languages. Once you have more than one language, you can choose which is going to be the default one. If you go back to the page, you will not see any visual changes. Even switching to Ukrainian from the drop-down menu seems to do absolutely nothing. At least it looks like nothing. What actually happens is when you create a new language, Panel Builder automatically duplicates all existing text strings from the default language and pastes them into the newly created one. The screen will look the same until we start translating it. One way to edit this specific language text is to go directly into a widget which has multi-language support, like this title label. You have an option to disable multiple languages for the widget, and then if you wish to keep multi-language support, you can change the language and type the new text, Система опалення, in this case. And then on the page level, if you change the language to Ukrainian, translated text will appear. While translating, keep an eye on the length of the text you're entering. Oftentimes, translated text is longer than the original English. Then you either need to resize a widget, like in this case, or adjust translation to fit the existing boundaries. Certain elements, such as engineering units or specific equipment tag names, do not require translation, and it's a good practice to disable multi-language support for them. However, it's time-consuming to go over each screen element and translate it manually. More efficient alternative is located directly in the multi-language settings under the Text tab. This tab provides a centralized, comprehensive list of all text-based widgets in your project that support multi-language localization. For example, the dashboard page contains Labels 7 widget, with the default text pressure. I can enter the translation directly in the last column. Now, if I return to the dashboard page, you will see that the corresponding label has automatically updated with the translated string. To make navigation of the long list more flexible, there is a filter option. You can filter out the list by any column. Suppose I want to see all text elements located on the hidden subsystem page. Type it in the search field and there you go. You can also do translation while the list is still filtered. And not only that, but you can even export filtered part of the table into a CSV file and do the translation process outside of Panel Builder. If you want the full list, just clear the filter and do the export again. Another powerful and unique thing in the text tab is the ability to translate not only your custom user-created elements, they're highlighted in green, but also system widgets. For example, you can access the alarm manager that we've discussed earlier in the chapter dedicated to scripts, allowing you to translate alarm states like triggered and acknowledged. A word of precaution though, don't try to translate absolutely everything in one shot or feed the whole file to an AI agent. Take it bit by bit and verify your results in between. It's easy to break something with those system widgets. For instance, translating alarm states would break the scrolling alarm banner script. Speaking about alarm items, you can translate both the description and custom fields. Panel Builder gives you two ways to handle this. First one, open the Alarms configuration tab, select your target language from the drop-down list, and modify the corresponding fields directly. Second one, navigate to the Text tab of the Multilanguage configuration and enter your changes directly in the table. Let me pause for a second so I can finish translating the remaining text strings. Okay, I've done my homework behind the scenes and translated all the fields that are necessary for this project. Now, here's the next logical thing to ask. How do you change the language in the runtime? After all, that's the entire point of all of this, to give an operator ability to switch languages dynamically. Let's see how to do it. On the settings page, I'll add two buttons, each dedicated to activating its respective language. Next, go to onClick event and add an action. Find group Multilanguage and select Set Language action. Finally, select the language from the drop-down list and replicate the same for the Ukrainian button. Now, if it's not obvious by the interface, you might want to indicate the active language. We can, let's say, animate up color property of the buttons, link it to the system variable current language ID, create new color palette and set tag values to 1 and 2. You can check ID of the specific language on the multilanguage page. It is the first column of the table. For Ukrainian button, the only difference would be the value of the active color, 2. Let's see if it works in the simulation. Navigate to the settings page. You can see that the English button is highlighted in white. When I click on the second button, title text changes to Ukrainian and with a slight delay, the button also gets highlighted. It seems to be working. Good. Now, even though it's not very relevant to our project, but a change of the system language often requires a change of the input method. An operator might need to type a text to filter a specific alarm description or enter a new recipe name. For simplicity, I'll just add a numeric field, clear the format, and select an alphabetic keypad. In the context of Panel Builder, the terms keypad and keyboard basically mean the same thing. If I try to enter a value into this field, I can type any text I want. The problem is that if I change language to Ukrainian, the on-screen keypad will still be in English. How do we tackle this problem? Well, Panel Builder is quite flexible when it comes to keypads. Pre-made keypad templates are stored inside Keypads folder. If I double-click on the alphabet item, we will see the very same keypad from before. We could have changed this keypad, but in order not to mess up with the default keypad, I will create the new one, or two new ones to be precise. First, copy the content of the entire default English keypad, then right-click on the keypad folder and create the new one. Select the alphabetic type and give it a name. The default template has a slightly different look, but that's okay. I will remove all the elements, change the size and the background color, and paste the copied content. There we go, you get yourself a copy of the English keypad. And now I will repeat exactly the same for the Ukrainian keypad. Each element of the keypad is its own individual widget. Rather a unique one, but a widget nonetheless. That means that you can select the edit box element, for example, and translate the prompt text. But the really interesting part begins when you look at the symbol buttons. Let's take the letter Q, for example. It has property key and shift key with values 71 and 51 respectively. If you look up the list of Unicode characters on the internet and find lowercase letter q, the code for it would be 71. Uppercase letter q would be mapped to 51. So basically, to convert one keyboard into another, we need to find the right layout and correct the character codes for each symbol. Let's practice some Cyrillic alphabet, shall we? Here's the layout for standard Ukrainian keyboard. The button with the Latin letter Q would correspond to Cyrillic letter Y. The code for the lowercase letter is 0439. It is all in hexadecimal, by the way. If I modify the button's key property with this code, the button's visual appearance will automatically change. Now we just need to find the code for the uppercase letter Y and put it into shift key property. By the way, you can further alter the symbol of the button by pressing Alt button and by using properties Alt key and Alt shift key. In fact, we could have even used Alt key to change the language. And from here the process is the same. Locate the button on the layout, find its code, and put it into the panel builder. You get the idea. After all is done, the updated keypad will look like this. If I go back to the settings page, change the keypad property to alphabet UA, and run the simulation, clicking the entry field will show the Ukrainian keypad. But instead of having only the English keypad, now we have only the Ukrainian one. So we need to find a way to switch keypads in tandem with our runtime language switch. And Panel Builder has a built-in mechanism to do it. You can find it here in the Multilanguage tab in the last column called Keypad. Double-click on the English raw and a window will appear, which lets you assign up to 3 keypads associated with this language. Let's say keypad 3 will be the alphabetic one. Select the English version of it. Then go to the Ukrainian language raw and select alphabet UA for the keypad 3. Now, to make it all work for the specific entry field, change the keypad to language keypad 3. Quick check in the simulation. English is the active language. Click on the entry field and give it some value. Good. Change the language. Click on the entry field and there you go. It uses the keypad associated with the Ukrainian language. And that's how multi-language support works in Panel Builder. That's it for today, guys. Stay safe and hydrated. Till the next one.